Thank you. I'd like to now recognize for 5 minutes Mr. Takano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Godfrey, I wonder if you were able to comment on, say, the impact of the GI Bill after World War II. Even as the nation was in debt quite a bit from the war, we embarked on the GI Bill. Was the emphasis on loans or was it on outright grants to soldiers?
It was on grants.
We embarked on this massive education program for our veterans, large in numbers, right? We did this even as the country was still in debt. And what was the impact of that investment?
An unprecedented growth in college access.
Pardon me?
An unprecedented growth in college access.
And what was the impact to the national economy 10, 20, 30 years because of that investment?
Generated prosperity.
Generated huge prosperity. And I just want to point that out. Even as the country was hugely in debt for paying for World War II, the country also embarked not on a loan program for our veterans, but on outright grants to go to school. Can you just tell us, just why it is important for the federal government to address issues of affordability and prioritize targeted relief in higher education?
We need to create a system of economic mobility. It's increasingly the case that a college degree, even an occupational college program, will lead someone to a good job, and we need to have equitable access to the education that allows people to access those occupations and jobs.
Yeah, and what is the public benefit? What public benefit does higher education provide to American society and the economy?
It gives us the nurses we need, the X-ray technicians, the teachers, the early childhood educators, the plumbers, the police officers, teachers, and so on.
Well, it seems to me that my Republican colleagues want to demonize public higher education or higher education in general in this country. It is a false sense, it's a false sense of, I don't know what kind of virtue signaling to an extreme base. Let me switch topics a little bit, but not completely. This has to do with the consequences of students who are defrauded by their school, for-profit schools, and misled about their career prospects. What are the consequences of that?
Well, unfortunately, there have been far too many students who've been saddled with debts that they can't repay. And one of the things that the administration has done is work on a strong borrower defense to repayment rule and letting 800,000 borrowers who had been deceived by their schools, letting them off of their loans following congressional intent from rules that go back as far as 1992.
Yeah, we've established that predatory recruiting practices by schools is terribly destructive for students. What is the impact of the Biden administration's reinstating of the borrower defense rule?
Well, I think there's two things that are very important to note about it. The first one is that it helps hold students harmless when they've been defrauded and through no fault of their own. The second is that it's created a process for recouping those funds from those who defrauded those students in the first place.
Can we just explain what borrower defense is? What is that idea?
Yeah, the idea is that if a student was deceived, defrauded by their institution, they were made false promises about the jobs they might get, about the education they were going to receive, about the occupations they'd be qualified for, the rule allows borrowers to show that to and be off the hook for those loans that they were made under false pretenses.
Well, so that's, would you say that this is one of President Biden's policies that was very beneficial for students?
Absolutely.
Now, with regard to, the targeted relief that he has for student borrowers in general, the contested relief that's in the Supreme Court, we're not talking about necessarily defrauded students, but what is the intention there behind this policy?
We've transferred enormous risk onto students and families by making college so unaffordable, and this helps to address that risk at a time of pandemic emergency.
And would you say that today's students in general, let's just talk about public higher education, is it become less affordable for students of this generation than it was, say, for the World War II or the 1960s generation?
Absolutely. The average cost of college has more than doubled in the 21st century.
And that's in real dollars. I mean, real comparisons, right? And so the burden on the cost on students and their families of this generation is much, much higher than previous generations.
It's no longer possible to attend a four-year public college for a family whose income is below $30,000 without taking on debt. They have to pay on average 93% of their total family income.
Well, so this is not about addressing defrauded students. This is about a generation that has been dealt an unjust hand because of the times they were born in. They can't be blamed for the fact that states don't support public higher education to the degree they used to 20, 30 years ago. Is that right?
Yes.
Thank you. I yield.